I love cookies. I love cookies. I love cookies. I love cookies.
Welcome to Cookies, the world's most influential basketball podcast. I am Ben Dietrich. Jordan Rodelli is on vacation, but Andrew Quo, well, he doesn't take days off. Mr. Andrew Quo. How are you, buddy?
I'm doing amazing, but it's a day of mourning for America because our president-elect this weekend passed away playing with his dog, allegedly.
Wait.
You heard it.
I didn't hear about this. You're saying the president-elect Joe Robinette Biden. You're saying was alive this whole time?
What?
Oh,
My third eye is reading the internet, and it says that he has a hairline fracture in his foot after playing with his dog, quote-unquote, his dog named Major. We'll be seeing the hologram with a walking boot for the next 2 weeks, apparently.
Is he going to be reevaluated in, 6 to 8 weeks or what?
He's going to be favoring his other foot, so a risk injury with his other stuff. My favorite conspiracy theory is the Avril Lavigne conspiracy theory, that she passed away in her prime, and the big music replaced her with a facsimile and made her kind of like more appeasable to a broader audience. And that's why she went from a skater boy punk rocker to kind of like a softer artist who got those big numbers.
Does this fall under the same category of conspiracy theories as there's a Gucci clone?
Same stuff. I love it, and we'll get to the undoing in a minute. But this is very undoing relevant. I mean, I love any sort of thought that's like, this is not the real thing. This is the other thing that reminds me of the real thing. But it might as well, because I just don't care. Like, does anyone actually care that this might not be the real Avril Lavigne?
There are some situations where the clones have been real, though. Remember, MF Doom had body doubles who were wearing masks going and doing his shows.
Quasimodo, an old rapper, would rap with a green alien costume, but his tracks were pitched high, so he would never perform like live anyway, so he'd just lip sync, and some guy bought that same costume and was booking shows as him. Awesome. I love that stuff.
I was covering was it Philip Plein? Plein? I think Plein. The German designer, I guess is where he's from. And there was this huge spectacle over in the Navy Yard. And they had fake snow on the ground, fake snow falling from the top of this hangar-sized building, these robots that are obviously someone in a costume, but they're 10 feet tall and they move mechanically, and they were stomping around with the models and things like that. And the Migos performed, but people were very skeptical if it was actually the Migos.
Was it?
I don't know to this day.
Yeah.
But they were wearing, it was very dark, there was snow falling. I feel like some of them were wearing like helmets or masks or something, and there was a lot of controversy as to whether it was actually the Migos or just some friends.
I like how the British, whatever they're called, the British Council or whoever does PR for the royal family was like, the crown is fiction. Guys, it is not real. It is cool because it's done well, but like none of it's true. And we're like, You know, like I love the idea of a brand that's so strong that it doesn't quite matter if it doesn't look exactly the same. Sort of like when bands get popular. You put out a classic record and then you follow it up with like Stillmatic, and everyone's like, well, whatever. It's not what we remember, but it's close enough. And I love that stuff with like shoes and you mentioned fashion stuff, but some of these designers' ideas are bigger than them at some point, and they get bounced, and the brand goes on.
We're already veering towards Jordan originalism.
Go
the
on.
Old body double.
I love a double, man, and it's like I love every show that is about a double. When I used to read, I can't even remember. It was the president was Barack Obama, and I read a book ages ago, maybe 8 years ago.
What the hell?
Yeah, I know. What the fuck are you talking about?
I'm sorry, excuse me?
And I read one book, like a stupid Nabokov book, and everything I see is like that book because it's the only book I've ever read in my life. And I don't know. There was, what was it, in the Undying, someone asked someone else what they knew what subjective bias was, right?
Have you ever heard of reverse psychology?
Have you ever heard of slapping glass?
So you're saying that everything now reminds you of Lolita.
That's a good one, too. I mean, all Nabokov books are the same, right?
Something, to me, like you've read more than one book. Like not to blow up your spot here.
Never. But I do like. I remember one time I saw the Libertines play at CMJ, and that's when Pete Doherty was on his famous, maybe downfall, and he had left the band. But they played all the hit songs, and I'm like, this is good enough, man. I got to see Joe Strummer do Clash songs right before he died. It was an awesome show.
So you like a good doppelganger.
I love a good doppelganger.
What about actors who play their own identical twin in movies? I hate it. Can't stand it. I thought the Deuce, awful. Awful. I don't need two James Francos.
Hey, you're busting my chops over here.
Was that James Franco 1 or 2? More Francos.
Well, I mean, there was standalone problems with that show, but I'm trying to think of when it could work. It's a issue of more a special effects issue than a storytelling issue, right?
There just aren't that many twins. And we have friends who are twins. Shout out to twins. But as a plot device, twins are... Come on, man.
It's almost a dream. It's almost like, oh, it was all a dream.
This character is great. How could we make them better? I don't know. 2 of them? No, that sucks. Ooh, too late. There's twins. Now there's Gasols.
But it's a one way to do a twin. Let's say I'm rewatching The Sopranos now for the second time in quarantine. Mm-hmm. And like, it would be cool if there was an episode where Tony sat down to have some gabagool, and there was like another cool, hip, overweight guy also having gabagool in the corner, and it was kind of like never addressed. That'd be awesome.
Isn't that the finale?
AJ Doppelganger.
How far are you into the Sopranos rewatch?
I'm doing the rewatchables of the Sopranos. I'm up to season 3, episode 1.
Oh, you're right in the meat there, right in the gaba of the ghoul.
It is wonderful, man, because it's a lot of hours that I can eat up with that show.
Sure is. I always run out of steam around season 4.
Of anything?
It's no, The Sopranos specifically.
Oh, okay.
As brilliant as it is, my rewatches of The Sopranos usually go from episode 1, season 1 to like midway through season 4. I don't know why it ends up expiring at that point. Maybe I just have that much time to rewatch The Sopranos, but I always kind of fizzle out about the time when Carmela starts eyeballing Furio.
Yeah, it gets vibey. So, I love shows. We'll get to, but I love shows about nothing. And around season 4, it gets a little kind of like the Foo Fighters' 8th album. And
I hear this all the time. Go on.
And, at that point, the production value has been raised a bit, so it looks a lot better. And I think it's a lot sharper and a lot funnier because they have a hit on their hands and they have job security a little bit, So I enjoy those seasons, but they're not like season 2 where you have treacherous family members.
I think season 2 is my favorite.
Oh, because of the treacherous family members?
Tony's mom is one of my favorite characters.
Oh, she is cool. But can you explain? What?
Well, Livia is just an incredible character, and she died in real life, so obviously was not on the show. I believe after season 2. She may have been there in season 3. I'm not 100% sure. But season 2, I feel like, is when they kind of hit their stride with Tony's crew as well. Season 1, they didn't really have like his like day ones established. It was kind of a rotating cast of his Goombas from like the family. And then they kind of narrowed it down in season 2 to Chris and Paulie and like, you know, Big Puss, I guess. It was a little more cohesive in terms of his like crew that hangs out at like the pork store.
For a while on Celebrity Row, there was always multiple cast members of The Sopranos, and they were rightfully like kind of gloating because they had the hit show on HBO, right? And I always thought like they'd show them on the Jumbotron and they'd be like, yeah, go Knicks, The Sopranos rules. And they'd play the music like, woke up this morning. And everyone was psyched. And I'm like, oh, but this is like a show that's 70% about Oedipal complex. And it's like kind of a weird show to be like, that's right, I'm one of those tough guys. And I'm like, is it a misreading of the whole thing to like, I just don't feel like the Oedipal part is talked about.
Well, there is the Oedipus complex in there.
It's the driving force of the show, right?
It's his relationship with his mom, sure. Mm-hmm. But it's also about the absolute crumbling of the American dream and kind of the hollowness of life. Like all Tony can do is inflict cruelty, be horrible to his family, and do that indefinitely until he dies.
Yeah.
Like there's no out for Tony. There's no nothing. Yeah. I mean, that's what the show is. Just goes over and over and over. Like his life gets threatened, and then it's kind of not. He's threatened with arrest, and then he sort of gets away from that. Like there's no upside. He's not evolving as a character. He's not working towards a larger goal. Oh, I did it. I'm the main boss. Like he's kind of established as that dude from the jump.
It's funny, yeah, you mentioned that, and I think what you're talking about is something I love about the show. It's like, it's space, and my favorite stories of when I see in movies is like The Odyssey, whatever. So I kind of read The Sopranos, no spoilers, as they were all in the afterlife, because he talks about the wilderness quite a bit and nature. And, you know, there's that famous scene or shot in the last season, maybe the last episode, where he looks out into his backyard at the snow. And when I rewatch it, I notice all these lines about him talking about nature and the wilderness, like, oi, it's like, hey, oi, I'm from Australia, so Tony Soprano.
Look at this fucking kangaroo.
Yeah. But marsupials. but I don't know. It's one of the greats. It's not as good as The Crown.
Hey, you're telling me this koala gonna eat some prosciutto?
So The Crown is the better show because of the weirdness of the Avril Lavigne thing. But The Sopranos is, as soon as they got job security, they kind of went off.
Yeah, I put it as the greatest show of all time, despite the fact that I fall out of my rewatch at midway through season 4 every single time.
Season 1 is not good. It's enjoyable, but it's not good, right?
Well, I mean, if we're just talking like standalone episodes, I'm not saying anything that's groundbreaking here, but the one where Tony takes Meadow to college, that's like one of the best episodes of TV.
Yeah,
where you finally see that this dynamic of a guy who's trying to be a sort of shitty father, but doing the best he can in like the normal dad life, while simultaneously trying to identify, catch, and kill a snitch.
Right.
And like him doing both is both hilarious and sad, but also it's the first time and one of the few times you actually think of one of his family members in a precarious situation due to his lifestyle. That's actually fairly rare. Yeah. There is normally that schism between his home life and his professional life as a member of the mafia that in that episode is far more internecine than typically.
Yeah, and where I was, let's talk about the undoing. Like, I love the episode of The Sopranos I love the most is when Meadow is having her graduation and he realizes his best friend is a snitch, but he has food poisoning. And I thought that was such a great way to talk about a thing without talking about a thing. Sort of like in The Crown where Diana has an eating disorder. It's not about the disorder. It's like they're showing you something that's showing you something else. And in The Undoing, it's like a more streamlined, modern view of like doing a show, and it's singular. There is no food poisoning.
Well, HBO's hit Whodunit, The Undoing, had its finale last night. After 6 weeks of episodes, there was a flurry of people catching up, I would say. So last night the streets of New York were empty.
Finally. It took the undoing.
It was like Super Bowl was about to start. People were packed into their single occupancy homes, ready for the finale of The Undoing. But unlike The Sopranos, The Undoing is poorly written, has bad acting, bad plots, bad casting, bad dialogue, bad cinematography, bad location scouting.
This is a bit haterish, though.
I'm not hating.
Okay. Okay.
Not hating.
I thought you listed all the bad things about a show.
No. Hold up. It is outrageously bad as a show. However,
not hating. Yeah.
However, it is also enthralling for some of these same reasons. It is so discombobulated and unreliable, both in terms of how people act, what they say, the writing itself, that it makes it a fascinating universe that is completely disconnected from reality, from New York City, from police procedurals, from anything that we typically watch, especially on HBO. It is a complete outlier in its lack of quality on all levels, and it was delightful as a result. Not hating.
I thought it succeeded. I thought it was actually good cinematography. It had a point of view, which I just appreciate. Not everything has to look like Fincher, even though I appreciate that the most. Like Mindhunter or something. I like the hazy, dreamy kind of awkwardness to it. I thought the writing was fine. I thought Hugh Grant delivered some great lines and great performances. I'm a big fan of sketchy ass Hugh Grant.
I like Hugh Grant.
Yeah, I thought Nicole Kidman, she's always good, and if she's just good at acting, I think. So I don't really notice her, but like,
I mean, she was one of the most inert characters you could imagine. Yeah,
and she has been different characters throughout, and like it seems like a very pointed direction. But I was talking to some spoilers. If you haven't seen the last episode, we're gonna go into it.
Yes, and we will have the little timestamp at the bottom. So if you want to skip ahead, just check that out, and you can bounce ahead. I don't know, an hour and a half from now.
Yes, 2 or 3 pods from now. Perfect pods.
Oh yes, of course.
It reminded me of Seinfeld, and hear me out. Not only is it a show about nothing,
that's true,
and obviously it's a show about a psychopath, a brutal murder. Cameron's debut album, Confessions of Fire, slap bass, doink, 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 doink. Like it says it in the title. So where I'm coming with this is when you start a show and you start it at a certain point. They started at a brutal murder. It jumps right into it. He disappears. It's nuts. So that is the starting point of for any show, albeit it's shocking, right? And there's more shocking stuff that people have done, but that's where it started. By the time it gets to B, nothing has happened, which is kind of a cool idea but it kind of was like, this is not one of the classic shows of all time. This is not one of the classic shows of all time.
Well, as Nomi Fry pointed out in her New Yorker write-up, friend of the pod, Cookie's guest, she said this is a Lifetime movie, and it is. That's what it is. You would typically see this with Judith Light. It is that level of production, it is that level of acting, that level of writing. It just happened to be spread over 6 weeks and on HBO. So we all sort of succumbed to the basic joy of terrible junk television and reveled in it and came up with theories and basically did all of the work that the show did not. And we looked for clues in all these incredible places. We came up with conspiracies. Who did it? Oh, it was the principal who was in cahoots with the cocksucker, Donald Sutherland. And then Miguel got involved. And everyone did all these elaborate theories. And then the show, of course, comes back to, it was Hugh Grant.
I kind of love this concept, though. It is almost like, it's a terrible phrase for it, or a cool phrase, like Occam's razor, right? Like, the most probable outcome is probably going to be the outcome, which is a funny way to tell the story, being like, I am not going to Agatha Christie this on you. What you see is what you see. The HBO just finished a show called You Are What You Were, right? About much different stuff, but it could have been the title for The Undoing, because nothing really got undone except your patience.
Well, yeah, I think I understand their appeal of throwing red herrings left and right and then coming back to Hugh Grant, who you have now assumed is not guilty and is likable. And at the last thing, they're like, it's actually Hugh Grant after all that. And you're like, I get what you did. I get it. And I think you're referring to this exact idea. That it was, with all these tendrils going in different directions, it just came back to the most simple guy. And it was also happened to be Hugh Grant. A likable man in every regard, who always is charming.
Yeah, and since every HBO show is a planet that orbits the New York Knicks, it reminds me of what goes on at MSG. It's like, we got a Randall, ooh, we got a slammer jammer in the draft, wow. It's but we're still bad. Right. It just comes back to the same thing.
So it being Hugh Grant, okay, it had to be somebody.
It does have to be somebody.
Got to be someone. How do you feel about the ending that they presented itself? And what I'm referring to here is Hugh Grant, instead of going to court, picks up his son for breakfast, drives off erratically, narrowly avoids a truck or a train or some shit. Cops start chasing him. Somehow Nicole Kidman is in a helicopter. I guess she just had one. Just at her disposal. Get the wife, get the chopper, let's go. There's a little scene on the bridge where he threatens to jump and doesn't, and then is taken into custody. So, makes me wonder, well, what happens next? He goes back to court. Okay, your bail's revoked. We're going to throw on a contempt of court charge, probably some driving violations, endangering the welfare of a child. He was in the car, failure to follow traffic signs, some other shit. But he's back in court. Okay, welcome back to court. Where were we? Oh, right, the undoing. Right, okay. Yes. My wife has no alibi, nor does the cocked, angry boyfriend who barged in and attempted to attack us in the courtroom. He was walking, boy. He was not going to jail. Get out of here. How are you gonna lock up Hugh?
It felt like a crowdsourced ending, where I know endings that, like The Sopranos, where kind of there's open-ended interpretations of it, are frustrating and cause more ire than being he almost got into a car crash. It's my pet peeve, as I've discussed with you before so many times, is Neo can bend time and space. Bullets slow down at Neo's whim. But at the end, he has to do karate to determine if he wins or not. It's hiya, ooh, block, punch, block, punch. And it just kind of feels odd to me. It feels crowdsourced, and the ending of the dong 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 is a way to quickly give us what we want, and I feel like it was fought about at the writing table.
I believe that as well. I just don't understand what we're supposed to take away. He's going back to court. All the same things that we've just watched, where it was acknowledged that the aggrieved boyfriend does not have an alibi and has a motive and is an emotional wreck and violent. That still exists. That happened.
Dude, it would be
there's still no murder weapon. There are all these components that they didn't go away because Hugh decided to joyride to Denny's for the Grand Slam breakfast with his son. But the shit's all there. It wasn't like he was convicted for the courtroom by riding around.
Season 2 of The Undoing. More Undoing. Reese Witherspoon as Nicole Kidman. Jude Law as Hugh Grant. Jude Law sits down. I didn't do it. Oh, you're going to court.
He barely even admitted it. In the car, he's like, that wasn't this version of your father who did it. And it was like, is that an admission or you just talking?
Yeah. And I know it was a book, and Eyes Wide Shut was also a short story that they took kind of liberties with. So I didn't read the Undoing book because I don't read, but
no, of course not.
but it was kind of funny. I was thinking about the parallel between The Undoing and Eyes Wide Shut. Obviously, like rich fantasy, New York City, Upper East Side, doctors, psychiatrists. This whole idea of science versus like what you put subjective bias, whatever,
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny how Nicole Kidman kind of gets to like redact her character in Eyes Wide Shut a little bit. And Eyes Wide Shut
wasn't that the one who smoked weed and got really reckless?
You mean the movie or the character?
The character in Eyes Wide Shut. Didn't she have a response to weed that no one ever has?
No, they get stoned and they have a really intense conversation, which apparently was brutal to film, but because Kubrick is a maniac. But they get stoned and she talks about the time when she wanted to cheat on her husband, Tom Cruise, and kind of destroys his whole mythology of him as
I
like
just
an
feel
alpha.
like he said something like, it's the weed that's making you aggressive.
Oh, yeah, but that was... And then she laughs and she was like, well, let me tell you the honest truth about how I feel about you. Okay. And that's kind of like the undercurrent of being a sociopath, or, Hugh Grant is a psychopath in this movie, right? And you kind of uncover it. But
like, he wasn't.
Yeah, maybe not. Maybe he's just a bad liar, But like introducing the family and the dead sister was kind of pointless, right?
Well, when I say they, I mean the writers, they made a big deal of that. That was a huge component of the penultimate episode.
Yeah.
Trial by Fury. In which it is revealed that he never had a dog. His dog didn't run outside and die, which goes back to literally almost the first scene in the entire show. So this was something they had planned out. This was a big deal. They wanted this to be a revelation. That in fact it was his sister who had walked out of the house and got hit by a car and killed. This is later turned into a key plot point where he apparently did not show much emotion or remorse or guilt as a child, which then is supposed to make us think that he was a sociopath. But that was a climactic moment in the final episode where Nicole Kidman conspires with Busy Friend, who we know does not exist, to tell the district attorney or the prosecutor this story about the dead sister. So she, Nicole sets up Hugh by relaying this information, and then she talks about it on the stand, and that forces Hugh's lawyer to go, like, freak out, and she's going crazy, and everyone is like, oh my God, he's a sociopath.
And not to get into... Not to get into...
I didn't feel that.
Yeah, to your exact point, not to get into details of this, but if the mom is saying he never cared, and he kind of was oddly cold about it, it is the major sticking point between their marriage that he was so affected by it he had to create a lie about it because he was like, this changed the course of my life. I don't like to talk about it. I'm like, he cares quite a bit, right?
No, it's insane that was a pivotal point in the trial. Instead of throwing her arms up in despair and then crumbling in ruin, perhaps the lawyer, who is all about appearances, could have just done a redirect and said, this was an accident, right? Yes, it was an accident, sure. Would you say as a professional that
right,
in 1965, Hugh Grant's mom would have been, a reliable source of analysis of whether he was properly grieving or not?
Yeah.
And then you would say, in your opinion as a professional, when he lied about it for your entire wedding and then wept about it in front of you, would you say that is that the behavior of a sociopath? Is that what someone would do if they were traumatized? And now it's like, it's a win for our man Hugh.
You fucked up, client.
You know what I mean?
I'm like, what is happening? It's like when you watch a procedural and like there's only 10 minutes of the Law and Order. Martin Short is definitely getting hooked for this one in the next 5 minutes.
At that point, you just have to trust the procedural.
Yeah. Ed Bagley Jr. is definitely the killer because there's only 10 minutes left of this episode. Ted Danson did it. Trust.
But I was astounded that was the climactic scene that then forced him to go on the run for the second time. Like, this shit, all she would have to do is say, when he spoke with you about this after keeping it concealed for 20 years, 15 years, whatever your guys' marriage was, and then wept uncontrollably about how his sister was dead, did that seem as if he did not have remorse or guilt? Like, insane.
And this is what will ultimately make this show an unrewatchable show. Because there's no poker. Edward Norton doesn't get the best of anybody. There's no high-stakes gambling with some Russian who eats Oreos, who it's a tell because of a cookie. Shout out to Cookies, the most influential podcast.
The Book of Rounders.
But, like, the unroundables. I just think that like this kind of puts a bow on this show, being like, yeah, okay, let's file this away with other dozens and dozens of HBO shows that were fun in the moment, but like it is the night of, right? Which I kind of want to rewatch again.
But the night of had good acting and good writing, and there was.
But it looked like David, right?
But there was an attention to detail that this was New York City. And not a fictionalized version that seemed created by people who had never stepped foot in New York City.
I love that though, because I don't believe in authenticity.
I'm not. Again, I think that's okay.
Yeah.
It's like Jackie Chan Rumble in the Bronx. Shoot it in Vancouver. Wow. Put those mountains in the background.
Judgment Night shot in Detroit, right?
Maybe. Or was it set in Detroit? I don't even know.
Yeah. I saw Curtis Lee. I've been seeing Curtis Lee on the street a lot, dude.
Yeah, how's he doing?
Guardian Angels are like really psyched about this BLM thing. I've seen him in Chinatown. I saw him outside of Feida Bakery, which is not the Music and Culture magazine. It's a Chinatown bakery.
Yeah. Fuck that guy.
Nice. Wow, no one's safe from Ben Dietrich, man. No one is safe.
Not even the Guardian Angels.
Hugh Grant, fuck that guy.
No. Hugh Grant is innocent. I stick with my theory. I'm sticking with my theory. I still believe it is an alter ego of Busy Friend. I'm sticking with it.
Yeah, I mean, when
this answer that they gave us is no more implausible.
Although the Busy Friend does have a conversation with the lawyer who seems to be real.
Yeah, but when the Busy Friend is talking with other people, it's actually Nicole.
And they're standing in front of a mirror in a bathroom.
Interesting, see?
The plot thickens to Hugh Grant saying, I think I know who probably would have done this.
I'm saying it's come on. I'm sticking with Busy Friend doesn't exist. Alter ego. Also, like, Hugh was the fourth best suspect. Maybe third best. Let's say third best suspect.
Oh, can we get your 5 best top 3 rankings of suspects? Again.
Number one suspect. Angry boyfriend. Motive and opportunity.
Oh, most obvious. Okay. Not most fun suspect.
Oh, well. I mean, he's deeply unfun in every regard. One of the worst characters in television history.
Oh, in history, damn.
He doesn't do anything. He just sits there and glowers. They don't even let him talk.
Are you in therapy? And he's like, what?
And they made their minority characters, and I'm talking about the fake Latina, some of like the most blank characters ever. Not that other ones have that much depth, but just incredible. They're nothing but a sexy murder victim and a guy whose eyes are tearing up who alternates between grief and anger. Just the flattest characters.
Damn. Okay. Other ones? Who's your top 2, 3?
I mean, Busy Friend is the real suspect here. It's Nicole. Yeah, Nicole did this shit. Come on.
Yeah. That would have been the best one.
It is the one. Hugh's eating the charge. Come on.
Yeah.
Hugh thinks his son did it.
Also,
just had his wife betray him. He's just like, I'll take the fall. Screw it.
Not to be weird, but a sledgehammer doesn't fit comfortably in a dishwasher, right? It probably could, but the kid would have to take out some racks. Like, this seems odd. And why run it twice? Like, all these useless things that they give us are confusing. We're like, it's that detail stuck with me. I'm like, why do they keep on saying twice? Can't it just streamline it or get weird?
But also, they did the same thing twice. Remember when an episode, I want to say 3, ends with Nicole Kidman is walking across the street, and you're like, uh-oh.
Yeah, what was that?
Then the next show, they're like, oh, she was just on one of her walks. Great. Okay, moving along. Yeah. This was the same deal. Like, oh, she found the hammer. And then it was like, but here's the story of where it was. I'm like, that doesn't eliminate anybody as a suspect. Why are we going through the rigmarole of, oh, it was found at that house? Who cares? You were all there. It literally didn't change anything.
Yeah.
All the same people who were primary suspects had access to that house. And we don't even know if it's true. That's why I also love the show, because everyone is unreliable.
Yeah.
Why was Nicole Kidman having flashbacks of the woman being murdered in the same way that Hugh had flashbacks of the woman being murdered?
First person point of view, right?
Yeah.
It was
exact same things.
Yeah. There is a joy in its chaos.
I agree.
Unlike sort of like the Knicks, right? And it's about the Knicks.
Okay, go on. I'm with that.
So it's Hillsong, and they perform in the garden, and Justin Bieber's there with Tyson Chandler. But they throw all these, and I love the Coen brothers so much, and they throw so much at you in their movies. Like, then it's a reference to World War II, and then like identity of a different group of people, and they are sometimes asked why they do that and what it means, because some of it's never resolved, and they're like, well, it's what we're interested in, so we throw it in there. And I think shout out to the Safdies, who Cookie's classic legends kind of did that with Uncut Gems, and that made it really joyful. I thought it's like, oh my god, there's many heavy things to think about as I'm watching something go in a straight line. The Undoing had that potential, and it was very enjoyable. I was hyped on the finale, but like halfway through, I'm like,
No, you realize that it's not all these complex theories we've been bandying about and rewatching scenes. You're like, oh, it's a pile of junk.
It was the friends we made along the way, man.
Exactly. It's junk. Yeah. All this stuff. We're never going to get a resolution for why Nicole Kidman happened to be outside of the actual murder scene. Like, other than that she was on a walk. We're not going to get any resolution for the lack of an alibi for the grieving boyfriend who was always said to have an alibi. Then it disappeared, and then we never heard about it again. Like, none of it makes any sense.
It doesn't.
It was fascinating, but it was a pile of junk. Why was Donald Sutherland staring at a painting all the time? Didn't matter. We never saw what the painting was. It was junk.
Yeah.
Like, respect.
Yeah. I mean, Nomi has a good point. It is a Lifetime show with better casting. Like, I was convinced it was a double because of the fixation on the victim's body in the first episode, right? It was a thing. It was a motif that kept on coming back. Like, everyone's looking at her in the room, and I'm like, oh, we're talking about a body double. The idea of a mirrored idea of somebody. And I thought that was a great idea, and not to get too lewd, but like twins, two of something, right? And like I thought that was so clever to talk about a way that they were going to finish it. But it was sort of like J.J. Abrams and Lost. I thought the first season of Lost is probably the best season of any show I've ever seen. That thing was incredible. And then at the ending, he admitted afterwards, like, I had no ending. So I just had to wrap it up so I can move on to Star Wars. You know?
This doesn't even deserve that, though, in my opinion. I think this was how it was going to end. And I know what you mean about maybe they debated whether it should be Hugh or not, but or how it ended exactly.
Or the writer of the book, right? Yeah.
Right. But all along, the plan was to use this story about the dog turning into his sister, who was named Kitty, Kitten, which was like incredibly insane.
Yeah, it's like baiting us.
But they baited you with all these things, and then they had their twist at the end was garbage. It was garbage. Oh, 50 years ago, he didn't seem to show remorse during the most traumatic moment of his life, which makes him a murderer. Yeah. What? But he didn't kill his sister. It was an accident.
I thought
he was
a
child.
Right. I thought that was going to be the reveal.
It was so stupid. It was so stupid. And they set it up from the jump. That was like literally a thread that went along, and then the big moment of episode 6, or episode 5, excuse me, was finding this out. And then it was dropped as her coy twist, her checkmate move as the chess enthusiast, was having her friend go and talk to the prosecutor.
Yeah.
If you're Hugh's lawyer, again, just to get back to that, if he's like, okay, well, how did you find this information out? Oh, on a phone call. It was last week. Oh, okay. Who did you tell? Oh, just my imaginary busy friend. And cool. How did this information get to the prosecution? Oh, interesting. So you can weave together a conspiracy of cops who knew you were at the crime scene and never interviewed you as a suspect. Like, there's no reason you were there. You're leaking information to the prosecution against your husband. Like, Hugh is not going to jail, man.
I know, yeah. This is not an airtight case.
Like, oh, there's a huge conspiracy against me that's by my wife, who was there, and also is the one who found the murder weapon. Come on, man. There is so much reasonable doubt for our guy, Hugh. Hugh Grant, innocent.
Yeah, and his character is going to move on to About a Boy 2, the Sledgehammer edition. But I thought the layup, and obviously this is based on a book, so I thought the layup for the writer of the book would have been, oh, it turns out the mom was like, or maybe the mom would say he let his sister run out into the street and she tragically got hit by a car, and he would be like, no, I killed her.
Exactly.
That would have been interesting, right? Mm-hmm. And then he's still not the one who commits the murder, which would have been double interesting, being like, well, there is no justice in the world because it's nihilist, right?
Or he spoke with the mother, and the mother was like, no, he killed his sister.
Right. In a fit of rage, and we protected him his whole life. And he ran away from us from guilt, with guilt, because of guilt. But he's not guilty of this. Like, that would have been such a richer ending, right?
That's exactly. We gave the writing far more credit than it deserved. I enjoyed the intellectual and emotional investment in a show this terrible. But ultimately, it ran out of talent. It wasn't good enough to even give us a fun, enjoyable, exciting ending, because it sucked. It thoroughly sucked in every single regard, but we made it great. As a community of bored people watching HBO, we made this show fantastic.
At least 3 times in my life, I've had a Frank Ntilikina jersey in my shopping cart, but I never get it delivered because it just runs out of talent, man. I made Frank great. I'm like, he has potential. Mm-hmm. His nickname is Smokes. He's French. He's a good on-ball defender. And then I watch him play. I'm like, I'm going to wait on this jersey, I think.
I've had no less than 10 various text chains going about this show. We made it great.
It's the friends we made along the way.
Seriously. Like, texting with our buddy Jacoby and his wife about theories. Texting with, like, my extended family about theories.
Yeah.
That was great. That was wonderful.
I think the real winner of the Undoing is Ben Dietrich, because I have not seen you this interested in a show ever in my life. And there's been some fantastic shows in the last 15 years.
What if I got into books?
Take that back.
I'm kidding.
You take that back.
I'm kidding. I would never read.
So Undoing, pretty good show. At the end of it, pretty good.
Again, we were the ones who were undone. Excuse me. Undone.
Are we the friends in the cell arguing about nothing in a show about nothing?
Sure seems that way. Well, in other entertainment news, I've been all consumed by The Undoing, as you said. But there was also a pop culture moment on Saturday night where two famous boxers, so the greatest of all time, Mike Tyson and Roy Jones Jr., squared off in their 50s. I want to say, 51, 59? Something along those
lines. They had
lines.
their dad bods going, man.
How did you feel about that entire spectacle?
I'm okay with it. It didn't get me really excited because I knew it was going to be a terrible fight. If it was going to be a good fight, I would have been excited. Morally, ethically, I'm down for it. These guys should be able to make money, and they're prize fighters, so whatever. The undercards were interesting. The brutality of it kind of shocked me, but I'm okay with the whole thing. I was not that hyped on it because it was going to be bad.
I found the whole presentation to be pretty gross and pretty grim, even beyond what was actually shown in the ring, which was at various times also very grim and violent and awful, or sort of dull. But the whole thing just felt dystopian, man.
I mean,
yeah. Sponsored by weed companies and gambling and washed up stars like Mario Lopez and like Jim Gray, coaxed out of whatever cave he's been hiding in to do
Jim Gray's still a big
interviews. Michael Buffer is here. Like, it just, I don't know. Wiz Khalifa. It just had this bizarre energy drink energy that just, it was kind of just repulsive. The entire thing. It was like, we're going to pit a YouTube star against a former basketball player. And then we're going to have two 50-year-old boxers fight. And then we're going to have this one undercard where a legit boxer is just going to beat the shit out of some tomato can for 8 rounds in a way that you were worried about the guy's safety. I don't know. And then there's rap performances in between.
I'm okay with all that stuff.
That's my shit.
I mean, at this point, what is dystopian, right? Like, and that to me has been what we saw has been a tradition for decades. Even like originalists are just like, well, I think I saw Manute Bol on ice skates once, and celebrities box all the time. And there's NBA players, ex-football players in MMA. Like, if you don't like the thing, it'll seem odd. I am a boxing tourist, but I visit it quite often. And my friends who are deeply invested in it, like we are with the NBA, were like, this is kind of cool. It's kind of weird, but not bad. There was a good undercard, not the Nate Robinson one, the real one. And they were like, whatever, this is fascinating. What are we doing, I
don't have a problem with it existing. It just felt like so many of the components were, it's not even like unsavory. It was just kind of like hucksters. Just various celebs and hucksters from like the 90s and 80s all coming together to try to squeeze some money out of a rock. And we're like, oh, there's a potential for violence and humiliation. We'll tune in. Like, all on our streams.
I mean, it's a culture. Prize fighting is... I'm fascinated.
It's not even an anti-boxing thing, though.
Yeah. Well, I am fascinated by these... last episode we talked about monoculture a lot. And I'm very into these things that seem dangerous and risque for people like us. And, like when you say it is something that seems gross, I mean, I'm glad there's still things that seem gross in this world, because having you two on the president's playlist is like less interesting than some being like, I find that thing outrageous. I'm like, you should. It's outrageous.
I understand that. There was a sort of grody subculture at work that we were
If
watching.
you're not a part of it, like punk is gross to people
But
who
didn't
are
it
not
feel
in punk, right?
didn't it feel even extra lousy though without the crowd there?
It did not, to be honest, but I know exactly what you mean. It felt... There was a cruelty to it without a laugh track, without an applause track. And if you weren't interested in the thing anyway, it just kind of confirmed that cruelty. But then again, if there was a crowd of like foaming at the mouth fans cheering for someone's demise, like that's also gross.
I always find boxing crowds really cool though.
Boxing crowds are the best thing about going to boxing matches. And me and you have gone a couple times, I think, and like it is awesome. I feel like I'm part of a thing, man.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember going to see Bernard Hopkins in the Garden. Fucking awesome. Just awesome.
Yeah.
Like the energy in the crowd, the kind of people who go to watch boxing, really, really unique in comparison to other sporting events. Like totally different.
I go to really low wattage boxing events with my buddies, like the all day ones at the MSG Theater, where the only people in the crowds are people who are friends with the boxers, and it starts at 1 p.m. and goes until late, and it's wild. We'll be sitting there and a boxer will win, and the crowd will cheer, and she'll come down and sit next to us and like untape her gloves. It's kind of like it's melancholy for sure. Without a doubt, and I think that's what you're talking about. There is physical harm that everyone is understood to accept, but also it is.
But I have more of a problem. I felt just with the presentation and the lack of a crowd and the kind of sponsorships and like the performances, and I don't know. I felt like there is still something seedy yet classic about going to like the Garden for a boxing match. Like there's something, as you said, it's the crowd, it's a prize fight. There was something about the exhibition nature of Saturday's event that kind of just felt more dark than a boxing match.
Yeah, and those high profile boxing matches are few and far between, and fans really hunger for them. But when you're at the Garden and the top card is finished, a lot of times they'll get matches in after really late and everyone's gone, and sometimes I've stayed there and it reverts. The lights are still there, the HBO banners are still up, and fighters are still boxing to like 40 people in Barclays. And I kind of love that part because it confirms the 90s ass part of my brain that there is still weirdness in culture and pop, like in sports. And sometimes I really miss that. I really miss the album or band that like is doing something weird that will never get on radio.
I really enjoyed watching my friends box out of Church Street when they did the I think they called them like white collar matches. It was people who are all amateurs, mostly regular people who have regular jobs who've been training, and this would be like a big moment for them, their first time in the ring. And those were great to watch. And, people don't get knocked unconscious. They're wearing headgear. Mm-hmm. But you see people who are, again, regular Joes suddenly in the ring, like fighting. And there was a very cool energy and supportiveness from the crowd towards people who were like, engaging in this activity because it's so far from your normal life.
Yeah, and there's a reason why boxing movies are a tradition, and they're all kind of heartbreaking. And it's fascinating, right, to see someone reduced like that. It was...
Well, I like the fact that these weren't people who were like, I'm going to try to be a boxer and get my head knocked out, and I'm going to end up... This is going to be my life. These were people who did something totally different, but were willing to like take that step to get into the ring for 2 minutes. I think they were 2-minute rounds, and like fight somebody.
wow, you're part of the boxing elite. They have to be white collar boxers, is what you're saying.
That's what they call them.
I like lifers who do this, and this is like their entire obsession and way out of their neighborhood. It's insane how good some of these boxers are, and when they get beat, it's just like it's very, it's abstract. To watch Nate Robinson go down like that, to me, was disturbing. I wish I never saw that. And it's always the risk. People said, leading up to the fight, people were saying on ESPN, Stephen A., Max Kellerman were saying, we're worried about Roy Jones because Tyson is built different. And one slight hiccup and he could die. And that's always a risk. And I think that's a risk with even a 20-year-old fighter. There's fighters who die who are young in their primes. And that is part of the fascination and horror of the thing. And it's fucking weird, man.
The boxing match that put Jake Paul, who is a YouTube star who takes boxing seriously, and I guess has been doing it for several years. He's had another professional fight under his belt, no pun intended, and against Nate Robinson, who apparently has only been training since September. And
he looked like it.
I mean, all it made me think of is, when my friends were boxing and doing it for a couple years, they just become so exponentially better at fighting than normal people. And that's what you saw out there. Like, oh, Nate, you might be able to fight, but this is boxing.
Yeah.
And, like, you don't have head movement, or you don't know how to move your feet. You don't, like, you don't know how to box, and you're going to get knocked the fuck out if you don't know how to box.
Yeah.
Even if you were a good fighter, you're just going to get knocked out.
He was wide open. Jake Paul had him in the corner, threw some punches, and was like, he's going to try to throw back. And when he does, I'm going to knock him out. And that's exactly what happened.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at it in basketball terms, it's like, yeah, anyone can pick up a ball and throw it in the hoop a couple times. Anyone can kind of dribble it.
Yeah.
But that's totally different from playing a game of basketball on a full court with 5 guys who know how to play. It's just a different sport. Like, you're Nate Robinson. You can dance around. You can throw jabs. You can hit a heavy bag. It's not boxing.
Like, one of my friends, still to this day, is like, I could take Manny Pacquiao in a fight because I'm 4 inches taller than him. I'm like, he would end your life, I think. He's a professional fighter. He's like, but I'm taller. It's really weird.
It's not Manny Pacquiao. It's anyone at any of these gyms who has practiced boxing for 2 years. They would all do this to you.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially one of the best fighters in the history of planet Earth.
I'm just saying, like, take Joe Schmo from that white collar match that I'm talking about, who was trained out of Church Street for a year and a half. And he will knock your block off.
Right. And, like, yeah, to that point, when these celebrity matches or, the pay-per-view bait happens, you're like, ooh, Jake Paul versus Nate Robinson. Who you got? These are interesting people. And Nate gets into the ring and you're like, oh, this is going to be really sad. He can't do this. He's winded. He's tired. He has no skills, right? He has an athletic mindset and the hubris of someone who's won a slam dunk competition, and that's all he has.
But again, my only reference point to this is, like, say, basketball. And you see this happen. People who say, oh, I can play ball, I can shoot. And then they get on the court and like, but you can't, though. But you can't actually play basketball.
It's like, I could play for the Mystic. I can play for the Liberty. I'm like, no, you cannot. Dude.
No. You can dribble and you can, like, make a shot every now and then. You can sort of try to play defense, but you can't actually play the game of basketball.
Yeah. Like, and people have all these kind of like borderline classist, racist, and sexist takes on these things, being like, well, I could do that because I perceive that whole thing to be kind of inferior, right? And I'm like, no,
I'm just
these guys
bigger and stronger, so
yeah, I'm taller. Like I've played college ball. I'm like, yo, man, like it is a whole different animal when you're in there. And yeah, Jake Paul looked like he was more serious than I imagined.
He didn't look like an incredibly good boxer, but he was, like, ripped, and he clearly had technical skills.
Yeah.
Maybe they weren't great, but he was protecting his face.
Yeah.
He was counterpunching.
Yeah. It makes me think of the McGregor Mayweather fight, and when that was, the lead up to that was kind of the same thing. It was, this is a farce. Like, Mayweather's one of the greatest champions of all time, maybe the greatest boxer ever. And you have this MMA guy that, there's a rift between boxing and MMA. They don't see it as legitimate. They see it as dirty and gross and all these things, and the energy sports of a classic thing.
I kind of feel like that.
I love MMA, but to my point, when that fight happened and the bell rang and you saw McGregor for 15 seconds, you're like, oh, this is going to be incredible. This guy can fight. Like, he's not a boxer. He uses his feet and he grapples, but this is all of a sudden very fascinating. And when that fight was over, everyone's like, great fight. Like, he does not have to be authentic to make that a great fight. And Mayweather was like, he's kind of good, man.
No, it makes sense.
Yeah.
But with Nate, you could see that Nate was the better athlete. Nate was far quicker, much faster. Just didn't know what he was doing.
Yeah, and to see him go down, it reminded me when Pacquiao went down versus Marquez, and it's gonna stay with me. I don't love. It's disturbing to me, sort of like in Game of Thrones when a character you're invested in just gets his head chopped off at the end of season 1, and you're like, okay, I know that's a possibility. This is just an actor, but very disturbing because I was invested in this. And to me, Nate Robinson, Knicks legend, Chicago Bulls legend, is someone I kind of like, and I think he's funny and he's divisive, and to see him go down in a pile like that was not fun.
No, I didn't enjoy that either. I never enjoy those elements of boxing either. And that's why the Tyson-Roy Jones fight kind of had the best possible resolution. Both guys showed glimpses of why we loved them and admired them and why they were so great, but also in a nostalgic way. But they were also, as you said, well past their prime, and no one got hurt. Fantastic.
As far as we know.
Right. But, there were not incredible shots landed. Sure.
No.
Roy's going to feel it the next day. But I like seeing Roy do his, little one-hand, walk-away, no-look jab. Like, I enjoyed seeing, the old gunslinger do a few of those moves. When he did his head shake, I was like, yes, I love Roy Jones. He's amazing.
He's awesome, yeah.
But it was nice to see no one get knocked unconscious. And Nate getting slept to that regard did remind you, like, oh, right, people can get, like, seriously fucking hurt out there.
Oh, die.
Especially if
Just
they don't know what
die.
they're doing. They can die.
Yeah.
They can die.
And it's part of the bias you mentioned before. It's just like, this YouTube star is going to beat a professional athlete. I'm like, at this point, Jake Paul is a professional athlete.
Literally.
Yeah. He's been fighting professionally. So, and Nate Robinson didn't take this seriously. If training less than a year for this fight, sure, you got to start at some point, but
I think he trained 2 months.
Yeah, I don't like it. I hope he's okay. I haven't heard about anything.
Apparently, he was back up and cracking jokes in
great.
his group chat that night.
Fantastic.
Like he wasn't avoiding people. Was like, I'll own it. I got my ass kicked.
Oh, we got to check in 5 years, 6 years, 7 years to see if he's still okay.
I know. Well, I hope he's fine. NBA players were a little disappointed that he'd let down the fraternity.
Well, Steph Curry, right? He tweeted, like, hope you're okay, buddy. Something like that. And I feel the same way about Steph Curry's shoes. I hope those are going to be okay.
I don't even know what they look like. Or it was just announced, right, that he has his own company that's called Curry Brand.
That's under the umbrella of Under Armour.
An imprint.
Yeah. I love it. Let's go. I went online to try to find those Curry dad shoes. Remember, I think they were the Curry 2s, the white ones that everyone clowned. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I'm going to see if these are collector's items. Can't get them. They're not like, they don't surface on any secondary markets. At least when I looked for like a few days. I was like, I kind of would like to wear a pair of these and see what the hubbub is about. But I can't get them. And I wonder if they would become classic. I think, okay, this is my hot take. Curry Under Armour shoes are ahead of their time. They're awesome.
Never worn them. I have no real takes on them other than when they came out, they were deemed ugly. Maybe in today's ecosystem amongst Hokas and, blocky fashion shoes and Fila disruptors, maybe the response would be different. But I don't know. Under Armour has just never won with a sneaker regardless.
There's a finite number of good designers out in the world, and they're all hired by Nike, I swear. I mean, not to say that Nike is perfect, but there's some Adidas I like. I don't know. It feels like Under Armour, with all the cash in hand, can't secure Kevin Durant.
There's only so many guys who sell sneakers anyway.
True.
Like, even with the good designers. Like, does Paul George sell sneakers? No.
Carmelo Anthony's didn't work. Kyrie's worked.
Kyrie is the best-selling sneaker guy, from my understanding.
Really? Mm-hmm. I like those. Are the freaks are the freaks flying off the shelves? Those kinky shoes.
I don't know. My understanding is that Kyrie's shoes sell the best because
nice.
They sell incredibly well in China.
You're welcome, Kyrie. You're welcome.
No, because he's a smaller guy, quick, super exciting. They sell like crazy in Asia.
And they don't care about originalism, so he wants it just enough for the Chinese market.
But no, this is my legit understanding that he outsells everybody.
I really like those shoes too. And
yeah, they're great.
The Embiids were disappointing for Under Armour. The Curry's I like the strappiness. Remember when he had those ankle issues and they made some with like huge straps? And I thought those were really cool. It doesn't take much. Like, I was really rooting for Big Baller Brand. I thought they had identified something extremely valuable and extremely vulnerable. But they weren't the ones to do it. They were the Nate Robinsons. Somebody will beat Jake Paul. It just won't be Nate Robinson.
Stephon Marbury tried it. Ewing tried it. Mm-hmm. And then now Big Baller Brand tried it. Someone will eventually figure out a way to sell sneakers in volume outside of the traditional sneaker superpowers. But it's hard. Not only do you have to actually make sneakers, you have to create the entire promotion of them. You have to sell them online. You have to put them in stores. But someone will eventually do it.
They don't have interns in cages getting less and less cruel every day.
That's the key.
It reminded me of, I'm a now retired DJ, but back in the day, someone would hire me, like a new club would hire me, be like, we want to give you every Wednesday. I'm like, oh, that's kind of a tough night, but okay. And they're like, and we want you to bring your people. I'm like, all right, I can get a few people there. And it's like, and we need you to promote and get on socials. I'm like, okay, I could also do that because I'm on Twitter and Facebook at the time. And they're like, and we need you to sell drinks for the people there. And I'm like, okay, at this point, you're not really worried about the music. You want me to promote an entire night and pay me as a DJ. And that's how I felt about Big Baller. They were like, yes, we love Akon. We love... we love trap music, whatever. And then they were like, oh, this is more about marketing than the shoes. And they were so smart at it, I thought, by creating a luxury thing. But it definitely was a house of cards.
Speaking of collapsible house of cards, the NBA has put together its plan for the 2021 season. It's going to be 72 games starting in late December. There's going to be games in the actual stadiums, some with fans, some without, depending on the state laws, I believe, or city laws. The Toronto Raptors are going to be playing out of your favorite city, Tampa.
Tampa, stand up.
Other rules include 45 people groups for each team with 17 players. And there's a snitching hotline so that Donovan Mitchell can report his teammates and himself.
It's like Donovan Mitchell, like speaking to the universe, like, are you there, universe? This is Donovan, Officer Mitchell to you.
They're all going to get COVID, right?
This is such a tightrope. because, we got news today that the Moderna vaccine could be kind of doled out before Christmas, like Operation Lightspeed. Is Operation Lightspeed just for the NBA season?
I mean, valid. The NBA could just pay to get the vaccine first, which they probably should do, and just give it to all their players.
Mm-hmm. This brought up this reminds me of an interesting debate. And there will be definitely some people who will say, why do these athletes take priority over me, my mother, who are voting, tax-paying people in America? Why do we prioritize these young people who just play a game? And my responses to that would be like, but they're important, symbolic people. And of course, it seems gross, but like, I see the justification of like creating some sort of value system where like these guys represent something bigger than I do, for certainly,
Yeah, I disagree.
Sure. Yeah. I mean
I
valid.
think in the system we have, they're going to get it because they are rich. I think it has less to do with their value.
But that's chicken and the egg. They're rich because of their value.
Right, but I mean, I think any rich person, regardless of whether you know them or not, can figure out a way to get the vaccine early by offering to pay egregious amounts, especially if it's part of a company like the NBA, which can do it in volume and be like, we'll pay you a crazy amount because we need, 450 of these vaccines.
It would be amazing if someone was like, I'm richer than Justin Anderson. Why does he get this vaccine? It's like, well, a lot's at stake because him taking the vaccine is Giannis taking the vaccine.
Right.
They're the same thing. And it's like, but I'm richer than Justin Anderson. Like, no, you don't understand. This whole thing topples with Justin Anderson.
But, right. So the idea that they should get it because they're more notable or more rich as opposed to someone who is more vulnerable, I cannot rock with that at all. I understand, of course, why it's occurring.
Sure, right.
Like, I'm not oblivious to these
right.
factors that we talk about constantly. But, I mean, no, I don't think Justin Anderson and Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons and whoever's on the Knicks, all their power forwards, no, I don't think they should get the vaccine first before people who have, or immunocompromised. Like, fuck that. But, of course, it will happen.
And it's tricky, right? Like, politicians will get it first, and people who are susceptible will get it first. And I'm with you on this, but this is just like I think
medical people should get it first, and then people who are susceptible. Those to me are people that matter. And you could throw in politicians. I don't particularly care about them, but
I don't either. But the whole system of what we do falls apart if like a slew of our politicians die, right?
I mean, they already half of them got COVID already.
Well, he's already dead. It's a hologram with a walking boot.
I was about to say, now you're going to inject the hologram? But it is a virtual vaccine, so, like, who really cares?
And there's some, like, conspiracy theorists out there who think frontline workers are actors, who are just like, I should get it before a nurse. And I'm like, okay, this is getting kind of nuts, but, like, I see the straight line of your thinking.
Do you?
Yeah, I mean, I can understand where their conspiracies begin and end. Like, it's not difficult. They're not. They're more Hugh Grant.
Are they?
No.
Is there conspiracy about COVID or healthcare workers, like overall?
Both, probably. I mean, it's easy to understand. I don't agree with it at all. I'm pro all those things, but I don't know. Conspiracy theories aren't difficult by nature, right? They have to be simple.
Do more people believe conspiracy theories now and just maniac dumb shit now than in the past, or do we just hear about it now?
That's a good question. I don't know. I'll never know, but it seems like there's a proliferation of it because it's pretty entertaining, man. I kind of see what the joke is, I
mean, it certainly can spread. And people can communicate in ways now that they couldn't in the past. That's for sure. If you were in some small town, you wouldn't necessarily say, what if these medical people that I know in my small town are in fact actors? Like, you wouldn't come up with that by yourself because it's off the fucking wall.
Yeah.
But if you read it once, maybe it sticks as a little kernel in the soft furrows of your brain.
Yeah, I don't know. I think, like, if it was an actual virus, this idea of things that live viral, like do memes happen before the internet? Yes, but now it's easier and quicker, and some die out faster. But there's a larger volume of them. I think that's safe to say that there's a larger volume of conspiracy theories.
And once you decide to go down into that well, you are in a polluted ecosystem.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you've already sworn off reality. We see it screenshot on Twitter. Someone was responding about Trump. Like, yeah, but that would mean that President Trump is lying.
Yeah.
And people are like, oh, so you just believe he won the election?
Well, when I say a straight line, like, there's a way to talk about this, in that if you're a Jordan originalist, you believe the writers and founders had a distinct vision for this thing, and to see LeBron James is to see it collapse. If Jordan originalists see LeBron James become the actual best player of all time, they're like, well, now everything is chaos and nothing means anything because the foundations of my beliefs are void. Then, if things are chaos, let's sow more chaos. So that is voting for Trump. That is saying Michael Jordan, I don't know, another player is the best player of all time. Or believing a conspiracy. So that is a way, it's a straight line towards conspiracy. If everything you hold is true, let's say you're Catholic or into Bill Russell, to see Michael Jordan is the deconstruction of your belief system. So you just go to where like-minded people reside, which is people who believe in, like, Pizzagate.
And if you look at the sources of misinformation, these algorithms are set to work in harmony with our brains.
For sure.
So you want to know more about COVID. You're a little suspicious. It's not too long before
you're... Is COVID sus?
Is COVID sus? And within a couple clicks of a video, you're being sent stuff about crisis actors. Like, you can't really have mildly fringy beliefs at this point. They just end up going full-blown, radical, out of control quite quickly.
Mm-hmm.
But that's also by virtue of our brains functioning in the same way that these permutations do, that just want you to sit there and click videos on YouTube all day long.
Yeah. I don't know. I think I used to think wealth was going to be the challenge of the rest of our lives, and it affects everything, but it might be this. It might be our brains kind of trying to adapt, coincide with technology and the way it's kind of affecting the way we think about simple things like food and sports and the weather. It's wild what it's done. Like, we are a zillion years away from Bill James's baseball perspectives. It's insane, man.
And if you look at our development societally with something like cigarettes, it's like, oh, we had normalized this and we shouldn't have. But we did it for a long time and there were consequences. Right now, you could look at it and say, what if in 10 years, 15 years, it is outrageous that people are just like walking around with phones? like, oh, you know what that does to your brain?
Yeah.
You can't have websites like Facebook. Yeah. You can't do that. You can't have massive uncharted information portals. Oh, no.
It could move the way of marijuana, though, because I think we're at the point where we're demonizing the internet, but it could be like marijuana being like, you just have to use it correctly, it's fine.
Sure. But, I mean, that's kind of what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm. It can go in many directions. I think we're getting smarter as a user base, but the people who are not getting better at it are very loud. But I think in general, we are getting much better post-Trump, post-2016.
I hope so.
I know you don't like the internet, but no one is safe from Bendy tricks, so.
Well, I don't have a problem with the internet. like, I'm not anti-internet. I am opposed to the evil entities on it. Don't like them.
Yeah.
I'm not like you know, who is just a ethical relativist through and through.
Well, everything is
There's
nuanced.
no bad internet.
No, I said there's bad internet. I'm just saying there is not one internet. There's no internet monoculture.
I think that's... Yes, I don't know. Hard
There's
to say.
no
right?
way. I mean, you can streamline even the smallest thing like your own feed. I could just turn my feed into something different now.
Quo,
you know?
are you going to show feet? Is that where this is headed? Ladies and gentlemen, Cookie listeners, subscribers, you'll get it first. Quo is going to show feet.
The feet in incorrect cookies undoing takes. Cookies is now defeat pod.
We were right. The undoing was wrong.
right.
I'm not buying that. I'm not buying that conclusion.
Oh, are you not accepting the results of the election?
Nope. Not. Our endings are better.
They are, actually.
Oh, I have to accept Hugh Grant going back to court? Nope.
Let's say you had a sister and she was of reasonable dating age with Hugh Grant. Hugh Grant. And in Thanksgiving, post-COVID, she came home, oh, it's my new boyfriend. Would you be more suspect of Jude Law or Hugh Grant?
I think Jude Law.
He's a squirrely one.
Used to see him at Beatrice a lot.
I had sushi with Hugh Grant once. And like an art collector. Me and my buddy Pascal were sitting having sushi. And this collector walks in with Hugh Grant and is like, do you mind if we all get a drink together? And I sat there, and this was the era where like celebrities were chilling downtown a lot. Like The Ledge was around, Heath Ledger.
Ledge Dog.
And it didn't seem like anything weird at the time because I was also young and full of like, yeah, whatever, normal thing. Now I'm thinking back, I'm like, that was Hugh fucking Grant, man. Charming, suspect British actor.
I think I would be more suspicious of Hugh Grant.
Well, Jude Law is a scoundrel in all of his movies, and he uses his good looks in a funnier way, right?
That's kind of what it is, right? I'm already anticipating scoundreldom from him. I sat next to him at a restaurant to, what was it? Il Buco. Mm-hmm. I don't remember him doing scoundrel stuff. But he was just eating, like, I don't know, pasta and meatballs. So, like, how devious can you get?
Yeah, what scoundrelish things can you do at a pasta spot? Dine and Dash, obviously. Oh my God! One time I saw my friend, and I was eating with my friend at a noodle shop, and she didn't like her dish, so she put her hand in the potted plant next to her, pinched a bit of dirt, and put it in her soup, and complained to the waiter. I thought that was so despicable.
That is scandalous.
I was scandalized, man. I was bummed. But
on the flip side of this, though,
yeah.
One time this was like a long time ago. I went in one of those, I want to say Chinese-owned taco spots.
Shout out to those.
You know what I'm talking about, the chains.
Of course.
You know, I don't even know what they're titled. They're still around, I guess.
It's
Maybe
a tradition. Not. LA is a big thing, right?
I mean, they used to be all over New York. I'm not sure if they still are.
Yo, Chinese takeout is dwindling in New York. It's all going away.
So I went into one of those places and ordered a couple tacos and maybe some like rice and beans.
Nice.
It was like very basic Mexican stuff. This is probably like late 90s, like early 2000s,
yeah, no,
whatever. A long time ago.
Bulletproof glass, yeah.
And I'm there eating my Mexican food, and I bite on what turns out to be a long, rusty screw. And I was like, what the fuck?
That's fucked up.
I take it up the counter. They're like, look at me like, you put it in there. It's like,
yeah.
Oh, you've turned the tables on me.
Touche.
Instantaneously, I was like, can I get some more for your rice? And they're like, no. And don't you try this again. It's like, hats off. Kudos.
Yeah.
I know when I've been bested.
How about the answer, no? Like, well, yeah. Wow. Yeah.
How about you pay for the screw?
How about we sue you for trying to entrap us?
Do you just try to disassemble our microwave oven?
Someone said something interesting on Twitter that the quintessential New York dish isn't pizza, it's Chinese takeout chicken wings.
This seems to coincide with your belief system.
Which is? Which one?
Well, I mean, I feel like you're just kind of trying to usurp walking food tour credit away from the pizza slice.
No, I'm down with the taco. When you fold the slice, it becomes a taco. I swear to God. But I thought that was an interesting idea because in certain neighborhoods, like the Chinese takeout is a big deal, and everyone has the fried rice and wing thing. And this person wasn't trying to be hot takey. He was like, I miss New York, and I especially miss those Chinese chicken wings. I'm like, oh yeah, they all taste the same, and they're very popular.
I lived in Crown Heights for a couple of years. They were prominent in that neighborhood for sure.
Yeah, I mean, kind of more than pizza a bit in certain neighborhoods.
There, 100%.
Yeah.
There was no good pizza.
Yeah.
I think that's also what it is too, is that pizza gets pretty shitty in a lot of neighborhoods. Like for all of the good spots where you can get pizza, like once, I don't know. I don't think the average pizza place in New York is that great.
Famous Rays. Well, Two Bros has had such a footing here for so long. When it came out like 10 years ago maybe, I was like, this is trash. You cannot eat this. This will make you feel bad. It is only $1. But now I'm watching these YouTubes of like must do New York things, and they're like, Two Bros Pizza, established in like 2008. I'm like, holy shit. It's the longevity award.
No, when I was in Crown Heights, I could not order pizza from anywhere around there. It was terrible. There wasn't edible pizza. You would order Domino's or something if you like, which is criminal in New York City.
I'm not mad at Domino's, but I haven't gotten it in years. I think it's okay. I know what you mean though, and it sounds so snobby, but it comes down to the bread. Sometimes the bread is just like not the greatest tasting stuff. It's like kind of sweet, kind of sour, and you're like, now I get bread nerds a little bit, because you go somewhere like Scars or Williamsburg Pizza, runner up to the Cookies classic legends, and you can tell the difference for sure.
I like the idea of the Chinese chicken wings. That kind of makes sense.
Yeah, it's not a competition, but it has to be up there, right?
I mean, there's other cliches, right? It's like chopped cheese, bacon, egg, and cheese. Like not really.
Not really.
Bacon, egg, and cheese, sort of, but I feel like that's just something people say.
I know. It's like my hottest take this episode will be, I don't believe anyone who tells me they love grilled cheese. It's nice, but everyone's like, oh my God, I can't resist. I'm like, when's the last time you had one? It's like, maybe like last winter. Like, does anyone really go for grilled cheese? There was a grilled cheese spot on Orchard Street or Ludlow for a while. And everyone's like, this is the most amazing thing ever. Grilled cheese only. And no one was ever in there.
I never went in there either. People talk about the most mysterious, successful store being the rice pudding one.
But that's a front. That's been outed, right? They do gambling in the back. Yeah, I think it was.
I felt like there was more to that story than I could recall.
They were just doing horse bets and sports betting in the back, and they got busted for racketeering, which is like the most general thing. I'm like, what does that mean? Did you break someone's kneecaps, or did you just like ask someone assertively for the money they owed you? But yeah, that was horse racing, I believe.
Yeah, good for them.
Yeah, rice to riches, as they say.
Are you going to get into some sports betting this NBA offseason?
I can't do it. It's like video games to me. I love it, and if I start it, it will take over my brain.
Apparently there's a culture at this point of people driving over to Jersey, where sports betting is legal, and using their phones to bet. You don't actually have to go to a physical place in Jersey. You can just use your phone.
Oh.
So, like what is it, FanDuel or whatever, apps
DraftKings, FanDuel, yeah.
will ring like halfway through, like when you're on the the bridge or the tunnel to Jersey, and it's like you can make bets now.
I would be
there's all
I
these
would
guys
lose
who-
so much money, man.
I mean, I never bet either, but there's all these like parking lots, like right in the other side of the GW, where people just drive, park, and like sit there and do their betting, and then turn around and drive back to New York.
It's so dumb. I mean, I thought New York was going to legalize this. It maybe the best name for a bar that I've heard of is in MSG. There's the DraftKings beer nook, and I thought that was like a precursor. They knew something. I thought it was legal in New York already, but I'm not really following that.
No, it's not yet. But Jersey, it's totally legal. I mean, Pennsylvania, it's legal. So if you're in New York and you want to gamble, it's not hard to go somewhere to do it, even if you're not doing it online like most people do anyhow. But what I thought was interesting about Jersey was that there was some hesitation to allow people to do it via phone because they wanted people going to these physical spaces. But it turns out it was something like 80%, 85% of all gambling is now done on people's phones in New Jersey. So it's just like a huge cash cow, especially at a time when people can't really go to these places physically in the way that they used to be able to.
Dude, if we could get drunk by like purchasing tokens on an app on our phone, we would all be drunk.
So what I'm saying is I'm going to get really into gambling.
Okay, this is a stupid question that I'm sure I can just Google and our listeners would know the answer to. If gambling's illegal, how come in fantasy you can gamble in New York? Like you can put $250 down.
You mean on Yahoo or whatever?
Sure. It lets you just put in a money amount with like, and it's attached to like Venmo or whatever.
Not sure. It might be some like
Are they
fantasy. Well, it's that you're betting with your friends. It's not with an institution, I guess.
Okay.
Like, I don't think it's illegal for me to bet you. Like, we're arresting you. You guys just put $50 on the game with each other. But the act of, like, being a bookie and allowing multiple people and masses of people to set books with you, that's when I think it becomes a crime.
This is an annoying series of questions, but isn't the fantasy GM, I mean the commissioner, a bookie?
No, they're a participant.
Okay, they're a participant because they don't take a cut. What about NCAA tournaments? I've always heard those were illegal, even like in your workplace, like you're not really allowed to do that.
Yeah, I remember hearing the same thing. Again, I don't think they care about that kind of shit.
Yeah. It's like suicide being illegal, right? It's like, you're not allowed to do that. It's like, what if I did it? It's like, well, true.
Many people are saying this. But anyway, I'm going to go out there, get some action on the Sixers at like 25-1.
Yeah. We have a few mutual friends that will hit me up before big nights in sports and be like, what do you think? What do you think? I'm going to put some money down. I'm like, I do not want to be responsible for any of this. And they're like, oh, it's $20. I'm like, oh, in that case, the Jets are going to lose. No sense.
Yeah, I have a few associates, and they'll just, that I'm not that tight with, and they'll hit me up and be like, what do you think about this game?
Yeah, yeah.
And I don't really want to give you advice because, like, what's the VIG?
I know.
Well, this has been the ending of a great
I
season.
love cookies.
Wow.
I love cookies.
A pod about nothing. More undoing.
Cookies.
Cookies.